But remember, we have our own mindset, our culture. We're in America, so we do come from a Western, okay, intervene, let's get this done, But, and we're like, oh, that's awful. But we do have to, first of all, understand. So if there's someone that you can identify in the family that you can talk to help you to understand why this is, what their culture is, number one. And then if you can explain, okay, this is what's going to help, what can the family do to compromise? You can't just say, imposing your view, and I know it's hard, you want to. The hearing aids have to be on all the time because she needs access to hearing and communication. We know that. But then this family's thinking, if she's going to be disabled, she's going to live with us the rest of our life. Who's going to take her in when we die and get old? So we need to make sure that she has someone that's going to take care of her when she's older. And that's could be the mindset. So you have to kind of go, what's the end game for you as a family? And work back. Okay, what can we do? You may not at family events have the hearing aid on if you're trying to find her a husband. But if you find someone and arrange the marriage and you put the hearing aids on, what's going to happen? So really finding someone to have that discussion. There are things called cultural brokers that I know Dana knows, yes. So using a cultural broker is someone that is of a community that can speak to a community that we may not be able to because we don't have the street creds. We don't have the with the community. So I think that's very, very important to use. But it's a great question. Yeah, no, excellent. And I think understanding, again, the family value. I was recently in Malawi, which is in South Central Africa, doing some training with professionals. And one of the things that we had to figure out is a family from a matrilineal or patrilineal society? If it's from a patrilineal, a male, I don't like the word male dominated, where the father makes the decisions. Oftentimes, you've got to get the father and the elders, the male elders, to buy in because they will give the word for what intervention. If it's from a matrilineal, it's a little easier because the mothers are more the nurturers and the decision makers, and you can talk more. So it's the same thing here. I had one family where the child was deaf and had autism, and they were from Nigeria, and and we went through. This was tough. I mean, they went trying to pray it away. The elders in Nigeria, the family here, but I was able to get through to the mom. And the mom got it, but she could not move because her husband and the elders would not make the decision for the child to get an implant. And he really needed one. And it took us a while, and he didn't get implanted till almost 2. And I mean, folks were losing their mind. And I had to say, guys, if we can't push, because she has to live with this. We can go in and say something, but guess what? They have to live together as a family, and this is their decision. And so I was able to meet with the dad, and by chance, I brought my youngest daughter. She just was off school, and I brought her there, and she started talking about her brother. And so the dad's like, "Oh, you have a brother?" Well, because they both had 2 children, and it was just starting. He's like, "Oh," he started to get it. Listening to my daughter. I normally don't bring her home visits, but I had a relationship with this family. And it was just like, wow, the siblings, that's a whole nother, presentation, but the siblings make a huge difference. And so sometimes, and what that taught me is, let's meet with the family. Let's bring them all. I brought my kids, I brought Malik when it's needed. Sometimes I just use them. Oh, Mom, you're bringing me for an emergency situation. I'm like, whatever will get to my families and my kids, I will absolutely do. But finding different ways, just thinking outside of the box is so important. Back to, when I talked about the siblings, that's a whole nother presentation. But just think about the siblings are also part of that family. You've got the parental dynamic. You also have the sibling dynamic. that, depending on even birth order, what the siblings go through. The last piece is long-term planning. For Malik, when he turned 18, I'm like, oh, you've lived. You're alive. Now what do I do with you? I'm serious. We went through the whole guardianship and everything, and I sat there. I'll never forget, it was a Saturday, and the sheriff had just handed Malik his guardianship papers, and I'm interpreting for Malik, and this big Irish guy from Boston. How he got to North Carolina, I don't know. And here's Malik, and he Officer O'Connell, and he was such a great guy, and I'm interpreting, and he's bending down to Malik, and he was saying guardianship papers. I didn't know how to say guardianship papers, so I said freedom papers. And I kid you not, Malik goes and gets his shoes, signs shoes, and grabs this guy's arm and was like, "Carl, let's go." This is a kid that I don't sometimes understand what he understands, but he understood his freedom papers. He was out and he wanted to go with Officer O'Connell, wherever that was, And so welcome to guardianship. Welcome to long-term planning. But for a lot of families, you fight and fight and fight to get the services, to get the medical, all of these things that we talk about here. And then they're of age. And now what do we do? And that's a whole nother piece, with transition. But, helping families to start thinking about transition early. One of the things we're doing at Beginnings is that we have started a pilot project of working with families starting in middle school of transitions going to be coming up. And then in high school, and then bringing the child in with us so that we're not just talking about the child, and depending on their ability to understand, but it's important that the child is there. And I had one young woman who's deaf with autism. We had ice cream. Myself, her, and her mom had ice cream last week. And she said, "I don't know what I want to be when I grow up." I'm like, I didn't either. But I said, "What do you like to do?" And she came away with 5 things. And at first she was just sitting there like, oh, mom and Miss Janae are going to talk. By the end, she had 5 things. She likes cats. She likes this, and this. Oh, I'd like to work in a cafe. Oh, I'd like to work here. And so she has homework now to do. And you know what? Whether or not she gets that job, it's not important. The fact that she, in her mind, says, I can do something else. I can go and volunteer. The next step is teaching and training her how to go and ask. Teaching her mom. And so you get what I'm talking about. It's a lot. But it's important that we not only equip ourselves, but that we have everyone at the table and we know whom to have at the table. These are just some professional, I'm sorry that got changed there, professional considerations that we've already talked about. But one of the things, reciprocity. This is a relationship between all of us. And I often tell my parents, physicians, clinicians, all of us at the table, we are human too. There are days, again, I didn't want to go in that house. But it's important that both people understand how to collaborate with one another as parents as well as the professionals. Obviously, we know it is a team approach. Figuring out how to have the engagement. How does this family want to be engaged? I go into a home or I'm seeing a family or even a training. I say, how would you like me to deliver this information? I have a packet of information, depending on how old the child is. I don't care if they're just born or they're transitioned to adulthood. A packet of information in front of a family can be daunting. So I want to know, how can I deliver this that this is a long-term relationship. In what way can I deliver this to you? Who else do I need to talk to? Sometimes I leave my home visits or meetings with, I'm talking to grandma, I'm coming back and talking to dad, then we're going to go to the doctor. So I have that luxury to do so, which I like. The other piece is why. What's the why? What is our why as service providers? Not just why do we do what we do. What is our why in working with this family? Not our agenda, but what is the why? What at the end of the day do we want provide to this child, this family, and what do we want them to get out of it. And then what is the family's why? You know, what is it that you want your child to do now, in a year, long term? Do you even have a vision? A lot of families with children who are deaf plus, we're looking at the here and now. And then the future comes, we're like, oh, now what do we do? Or, you know, but really being that person and that happened for me with a lot of our early intervention providers. A couple in particular kept pushing me. Okay, you're at this stage. Have you thought about the next stage? You know, what's your why? What do you want Malik to do? What do you want him to do? Where do you want your family to be? Even with the transition piece, you know, my husband, you know, was like, he's got to get out. We got to have an empty nest. I'm like, but you can't let my baby go, you know. But what does the child want? You know, helping the families to flesh out what does the child want? What are the expectations? Keeping the expectations high, pushing. Malik right now is living in a group home for young men who are deaf in Fayetteville. And it would not have been for people pushing me and saying, how are you going to help Malik live his best life? Not necessarily come home and have care providers, but what is Malik's best life? Not what you want for him, but what is his best life? This kid has a TV like this on his wall. He's working, he's doing different things, and he's happy. You know, and it didn't just happen like that. It was just the progression of looking, my girls went to college. That's what I wanted for them. That's what they wanted for themselves. The same thing with Malik. What does he want for him? And then just finally the empathy. You know, really having the empathy for the families. Not sympathy, not, you know, in North Carolina, oh, bless your heart. You know, because we're resilient. Our families are resilient. We don't get resilient overnight. We get resilient through our own experiences, but we also get resilient through the people that help us. I would not, again, be standing here if it wasn't for the countless 23 years of people that, you know, starting with my mom in that room, you know, about to yoke up the doctor, but professionals that have become family members, that have become friends, constantly pushing me and saying, yes, this is hard. Yes, this is difficult. But what are you going to do with it? This is what you've been given. What are you going to do with it? And then finally, what are you going to help families to do?